Good evening and welcome to the Village of Webster Board meeting for August 27, 2020. And if you would all rise, we'll say the pledge. Carl, would you lead us, please? I allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mayor, by assisting straight towards the microphone on, I will get them.
All right. First item, I guess, on our agenda this evening is a period of time for public comment. If there's anyone who wishes to address the board, we've asked one for emailing of questions as well as sending them in during the public comment portion. And also we are inviting speakers in to address the board. So at this time, we're waiting for the first speaker to enter the building.
Sewer revenue coming into the village plays a significant part in how overall operations are supported. motion, I can't help asking myself, if we're here tonight exclusively talking about an aged village sewer plan, or are we convincing ourselves that making a bad long-range choice of spending millions of dollars to preserve this department, the status quo in the village, is going to somehow all work out? The risk to going in this direction is being decided by the village trustees, but the financial implications of heading in this direction will fall upon the 6,300 and some odd village residents and businesses that have to monetarily support this decision and where it takes us. I do have a bit of background in this topic. In November of 2019, I was asked to be a member of the sewer study committee that was convened by the Webster Village. And the committee was made up of 2 commercial property owners, 2 village residents, 2 Xerox representatives, and 1 business member of the Chamber of Commerce. On that committee was myself, Charlie Conrose, Bill Stata, Paul Scheibel, Jim Guck, Bill Horace, plus Marcus Lathrop and Joe Posek from Xerox. The chair of the committee was Barry Howard from the Chamber. Advisory members were Trustee Lancey, Jake Swingley of the Village Public Works, John Carnival, Chief Plant Operator of the Village Sewer Department, and I believe Marcia Adams, who was the treasurer of the village. And additionally, Clem Chung and Ethan Bodnar from LaBelle and Associates were in the group and made numerous and lengthy presentations that described the overall situation in detail. The study committee met several times and deliberated the situation for many hours. Needless to say, the committee learned a lot about what was going on at that point and what the possibilities might be of heading one way versus another. It was obvious to me that there was a lot of hard work that went into the numerous studies that came to the committee. The other thing that was clear was the devotion to the village that comes out as you listen to Jake Swingley, John Carnival, and Jude Lancey. Their service to the village is not just a job, but an obvious commitment to the community that they serve. I hold these people in high regard, and I commend them for their dedication. The village trustees had expected the committee to come back with a recommendation that was somewhat definitive and would inform a movement one way or the other. The problem that the committee had was that there was not a specific deal between the village and the town that the committee could evaluate and consider. The only information the committee had was an offer from the town that basically said, do you want to combine with us or not? My guess is that more specifics could be available, but when our chair asked the officials from the town to come in and answer questions, they felt that it would be improper for the town to come into an ad hoc committee meeting of the village. It left the group no choice but to come back with an inconclusive decision. The summary report to the village trustees stated, quote, the committee recommends to the village trustees that the next step in the process would be the establishment of an official model regional deal. This model would need to be developed and agreed upon by both municipalities. Only at that point would it be reasonable for anyone to look at the situation and make a fully informed decision as to which path to follow on the matter, unquote. So where does this all leave us? This is obviously a very important decision. The decision will impact the village of Webster in many ways for many years to come, and is one that has passionate supporters on both sides. No matter what the decision, there are a number of people that are going to be unhappy. Beyond that, there are financial implications to all village businesses and residents. Many of the models that are being used rely on tentative projections and guesswork to consumption, costs, and utilization of the sewer system. These assumptions present considerably more risk to the village scenario than the regional approach. The accuracy of the usage models will only be borne out over time when the Xerox situation becomes known. Beyond that, there is the unknown of government regulation as it applies to sewer treatment operations in the future, and the cost of compliance with ever-changing new EPA and DEC regulations. After considering the situation, I can't see why we would not take advantage of this opportunity to move to a regional solution. This direction is motivated by a basic understanding about business risk and covering downside. Here are some essential facts I think are important. The town has 4 times the number of users as the village. Spreading costs across a larger number of users is beneficial for keeping costs in line. If the village goes on its own, the sewer costs rise above the level that we see in other surrounding communities, there will be a negative effect on property values. The overall value of village houses and businesses will be at a competitive disadvantage due to higher overall sewer taxes. Environmental regulations continue to change, and there is no telling what the associated costs of new regulations will be. Take it from me, I know something about that. Up till now, the town has accepted the village discharge through their plan. My understanding is that that will not be the case in the future, and there will be costs to solve this problem. Again, the Xerox situation is very much up in the air right now. The usage from Xerox could be more or less than it is right now. If it is less, the downside of that fact will greatly affect what village residents will pay for a village-only sewer system. The employees of the sewer department and village highway services department are long-term employees. As those people retire, I believe it will cost more money to replace these people. And also the institutional knowledge that will be lost will change the financial picture of what it costs both the village and the sewer department to operate. I don't believe these costs are accurately portrayed in the numbers that we see. And I believe the town has agreed to pick up any of the village sewer department employees. I can't be sure about that, but at one point that was my understanding. So in conclusion, I see only one reasonable decision that makes sense in the long term. It's best exemplified by the term that I see being used around town of one Webster. My recommendation is for the village and town to come together and negotiate the specifics of the move away from the village sewer system and move to a regional system. I thank you once again for the opportunity to speak here.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Larry Maggio.
Good evening. My name is Larry Maggio. Hi, Gary. 204 London Road. And I'd like to take a moment to walk away from the podium and go get his notes, because I'd like to read everything he pretty much said. However, the conclusion that he came to based on the options that were handed to the village board. And I don't believe, and I'm firmly cemented in this feeling now, and like the previous speaker, have been staying, as you know, pretty close to this. Hopefully you were all aware of the Zoom meeting. This gentleman here, one of the engineers, was at, and it became very clear and abundant as I texted a lot of messages. My first question was, have you included all the costs of the village residents in this regional plan? The answer is no, they're not. They were out of scope. You said it, your counterpart said it, not because you had a choice, but because that was the framework of which you were asked to present the numbers. That's only part of the picture. If this is going to be a town worth living, and I've got the previous speaker by about 15 years in this town, I'm up to 55 and counting. Life is worth living here if it's fair for everybody. So that means if you want to go to a regional plan, I haven't seen an option yet that's fair to the village. Haven't. I don't happen to like the fact that I can't communicate with the village board. You know that too. and my stance here has been very clear about that. These kinds of energies that I'm displaying right now, they come as more data comes in. And if you get data all the time, and we don't see it, it's very, very unfair, and it makes us very skeptical. But I'll tell you, as I learn probably as much as you've already learned for some time, I ran into the village hall waving something that Peter Elder put on my door. I was like, he's probably pretty close here. This is not a good deal. It's not a good deal. The way it's structured. It's not a good deal. Say no. But say yes to considering a regional plan that is equitable to all the village residents and town residents. And here's what happened in that Zoom meeting that just hit me right between the eyes. I hope each one of you saw it as well. It happened twice. The question came across as Barry was running through the questions, and the question was, are we including these costs? No. And then at one point, the consultant for the town said, this is a one-time only offer. You sign on the dotted line, or there's no deal. At that point, I knew we had a car salesman in our midst. And I didn't blame the person that said it, because just like every business, everybody's following the rules, staying within their boxes. Well, the good news is, I don't work for any of them, so you gotta listen to me. And sometimes I don't know what I'm talking about. But I think I'm getting closer. I smell a rat. So I met with Tom, the town supervisor this afternoon, for two reasons. I said 90%, and I wasn't lying. I'd never met the man before. 90% of the reason I went there was to get to know him. He's here, he's, 10% I said, I gave him a hint, I'm going to talk about sewer. I shared all this stuff. And he said to me, and I kid you not, he said, Larry, in the last 24 hours, I've uncovered some things that make it very clear this regional plan was not a good deal for the village of Webster residents. I'm saying here on a podium in front of you today, I met with the man less than 2 hours ago. Further, he said, because my big concern about the regional plan is all the monies that we've put in to maintain a sewer system and do it well, just like that piece of paper said, probably 3 or 4 times per unit of measure as the town. Not that it's a we there, but a comparison. We're very good at what we do. So I said, I lost my train of thought. Hang on. What was I talking about? You said further.
Town supervisor.
Right. So I said, and my concern was all the monies that the village residents have been paying at your decision to keep this equipment running, and as you have said, in top-notch condition, and I think I'll paraphrase when I close, top-notch condition well beyond the years that it was probably meant to be. Translation, it's going to cost us more later. I'm still not worried. Things are running fine. I like old cars. So, I said to Tom, the supervisor, I said, so why is it that both the engineer for the town and Barry, who should have been impartial, both were saying, oh, no, that's out of scope. I go, they're both wrong. It's out of scope because you say so. It's not out of scope if you're fair and equitable. And he said, not only did he feel in the last 24 hours that something wasn't right for the village of residents, he went on to say, he would go all the way back to 2007 when there was apparently some, I don't know much about this, but some major investment in some piece of this sewer system that's going to remain a part of. And apparently they weren't doing a very fair job at accounting for that in their numbers as well. So when you start to take this balanced scale that was very unbalanced before, it's all about the, well, let's see, which way is good? I don't know, pick one. You know, the town has got all the leverage and the poor village has little or none. I think Tom is willing to listen and make it more equitable. He went further to say he would have a steering committee comprised of both the village and the town of equitable size in both regional areas so that we get, as village residents, an equitable contribution to the steering committee. So it's not going to be 3 to 1, it's going to be 1 for 1. So I'm here to tell you that regional plan is the way to go. There's no doubt about it. Nothing against how you run this village. You guys are top notch. There's no doubt about it in my mind. But this regional plan is a definite no if the option is this way or the highway. Then give them the highway, and I say keep it the way it is. So unless they truly look at this whole Webster as one and improve it with the right numbers, with the right scope, then I say no. But I think after my meeting with Tom, there's no doubt in my mind, Daryl, we need to get together. He's got a vision that goes far beyond sewer systems that I think you and he would just have a ball talking about. I think this village could take right off, and we wouldn't have to worry about maintaining 2 systems. Well, I hope I've made myself clear. I've done the best I could. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. Our next speaker is Rick Walter.
Richard Walter, 20 Elm Street. You all know me. I'm here speaking on my own behalf today, not for anybody else. First of all, I want to say that this idea of switching to a central plant goes back to the Cahill plan, who originally stated before he ran for office he was going to do away with the village. I think this partially is one more step in his plan, as he is a major supporter of this. Many of you didn't hear his make that comment, but he made it directly to me on the night after he addressed the village board and threatened to punch me out after I questioned one of the points he made, which was the town retreats, 100% retreats all our sewage. This is how informed that gentleman was. We obviously know he doesn't. I want to make the point that we just spent a whole lot of money, some of it borrowed from the village general fund, I believe, to upgrade our plant even more, to completely rebuild the digester. If we go with the regional plan, that money just kind of floats out the window someplace, because I understand from what I've been able to hear, and I was not privileged to the meeting I had a week ago because I was uninformed of that meeting. Because they screw up somewhere between the post office, the printer, and the village. That money would be gone, the money we just spent, village money, long lost. Would be investing, if we go with the town, in a new plant. Basically, the town's not rebuilding their plant, they're rebuilding a plant. The town plant, through the last 40 years, by admission of the town board at a town board meeting, has let their plant go. They've only done necessary repairs and maintenance. They have not kept it up to date. They have not attempted to keep it up to date. So we were taking to shut down a plant which is up to date and running efficiently to go in on a brand new plant. So we're going to take the money that we have invested and just let it float out the window. To go in and invest into something new would be like you going and putting 10 grand into your car to make it a nice, runnable new car again, and then parking it out back and giving the neighbor another 10 grand so you can use his, while yours sits in the backyard and rusts. Seems unfeasible to me. Okay, another question. I understand the card that didn't go out was made up by the town, So this is what the story is out there. The town
It was both of us.
wrote it, is what I understand initially, from their point of view, which doesn't seem right to me. It should have been from the village point of view. This is the story we hear out there. There are no facts, nothing in the paper, nothing. Also, I'd like to point out that the former town supervisor has admitted on his blog, on the internet, that the reason the town wants the village in on this plant is so they can get better grants. They don't care other than they can get better grants. It will save town residents money. They kind of forget that the village is part of the town. And I know this because it was mentioned how long people lived here. I've been in the village of Webster longer than any of you. I've been here 74 years. So, if you want to talk to somebody that has been around the village, that's me. The question of Xerox keeps coming up. I have seen Xerox go down like everybody else. If we feel it's going to go downhill, the question is to ask, why are we paying a planner, Matt Chatfield, to bring it back to life, to come up with grants to bring it back to life? If we think it's going downhill and destroying our sewer plant without its flow, why are we spending the money to try to bring it back if it's not going to be any benefit because we don't think it's going to be there? It seems like we have a two-sided thing here that doesn't meet in the middle. All right, and I did. Okay. And I just wanted to say in conclusion, I'm not the fancy speaker the others are here, that I hope this board acts in the best interest of the village residents. Some of the scuttlebutt out there and a lot of what's going around is the best interest of the village board is to pass this off to the town so they don't have to deal with it. And I hear that more and more out there. That's the reason you're switching, is you don't want to deal with it. Just give it to the town and you're done with it. Well, it's here, we need it, and we should keep it because village residents have been investing in it for years. It is a working plant, unlike the towns, and we should keep it. If nothing more, it should be there to run and let the town back up. The other comment I heard is that we would be denied access to the speedies permit if we don't go with this deal. Our lawyer can probably tell you that they cannot do that. That we are on the speedies permit, will remain on the speedies permit. They cannot, as I believe the current supervisor was and said, he will take away the speedies permit if we don't go with this. He cannot do that under the law. A friend of mine looked that up and proved it. I thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Welter. I'm gonna go let him out. Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Thanks.
This is a comment that was sent in, and it is from Peter Heller. I regret I could not be present in person tonight, and I thank you for reading these comments. I know that members of this board want to do the right thing. For village residents, I am concerned that there may be some confusion about what the right action is about the village sewer treatment plant. I want to encourage the board to retain the village charts at last Wednesday's meeting of projections clearly show that it will be about 15 years before the village rate exceeds the consolidated rate. It is critical in these economic times that we keep our eyes on the present. Approving a town takeover of the village treatment will result in years where village ratepayers will be penalized by participating in a town-led treatment process. The village, or excuse me, the entire reason the town wants this project, and the supervisor has been writing nonstop about it for a week, demonstrating that the town really wants the regional result, is because the village's less favorable income status helps qualify the town plan for more favorable plans. So we have identified the village as having a population more vulnerable to economic distress, and yet would add to that distress by raising the sewer rate for years. Right now, with two plans working together, we have a rate structure that favors the village. It even favors businesses located in the village. Under a town takeover, the village becomes just another part of the town, could even have a higher total rate than a town user. It is critical that you consider the current village sewer user in your decision making. The future will arrive in time, and a board years from now can consider the conditions then. Your job should be to keep your eyes on the present. Finally, I ask that you hope and faith, the future belongs to your successors, and that future board will meet your challenges just like past boards met their challenges. Fear about Xerox, fear about permits, fear peddled by certain town officials carries power only if you can see a dim future with its people. Neither is true. I have been around to see over a dozen different boards, and each rose to their challenges, did the best they could, and had faith in the future. This board is made of that same stern stuff. Have hope and faith. Keep your current residents uppermost and reject outside forces trying to interfere. Keep our village rates lower and more competitive, and I know you will keep our village place where it's like this worth living. Thank you. Leader on. And I have one more. This was sent or provided to me by Megan Haskell, our office clerk, who took a phone call today from Jason Grisafulli of 94 Baker Street, who was unable to be present at tonight's meeting. He heard through Facebook that regionalizing our wastewater treatment plant with the town is a possibility in the near future. He also heard that mailers were supposed to be sent out to all village residents to inform them of the presentation by Labella that took place last week. Since the mailers failed to be sent, he believes that the village board should delay any decision until proper notification is received by residents. Those were the two comments that were a lot of discussion has in fact gone on and did go on regarding the mailings, and there was a comment made today by the person from Social Hills. Was it Dave?
Yes, from Empire State Weekly.
Empire State Weekly.
Yes, his name was Dave, yep.
Regarding the mix-up that took place, and apologize for it, and for the canceling the costs that were involved. So that's very worse, but it should be something that it was, however, publicized that it would be broadcast on Facebook, and I believe that has been on since that evening. Correct?
Lauer? Sorry. Mayor Byron?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Next we have our claims report. I had a chance to look over the page during the two weeks, and I have had my questions answered. So I am in agreement with what's being presented.
deposit going to cover? Even if something was damaged, $150 is like, what's the point?
I think it's more of the cost that acts as a possible deterrent to just being careless and reckless. It's just a deposit. I don't know exactly what it's about.
I mean, it's honestly, it's a town department, and you've got to get a good, cooperative relationship with, with the town, so I could see this calling saying, hey, what's his name, Mason?
Yes.
Mason, let's make sure we're cleaned up afterwards, and all the little kids pick up their juice boxes, their pillows, take them when they go, and it'll be a good trade.
He does a lot of events for White Christmas too, Jake.
That's it.
He does readings at White Christmas and everything with the
Yeah,
kids.
I mean, I think it's just, that's what the park's for, use it. I'd say if there's a private group in there wanting to use the power, wanting to do, needing special things, I mean, if it's a private group, we would charge for the power, we would provide chairs and everything going on that. But this is the town want to use it, I'd say absolutely. I'd say, dollar. Work with them just like everybody else, and they got a chance that somebody makes a mess or whatever, just call them up and say, hey, they ordered. History would tell me that they had somebody order right away. The other night, so.
So would you be in favor of waiving the 150 fee or keeping it until the just as a
I say after getting,
because neighbor at the library located, it's not like they're gonna trash a place or we got Jake's blessing. As long as they clean up after themselves, these guys aren't out there having to clean up litter and all that, so. If they, screw up one time, we can address it, but I think we'll be a good neighbor and have a great then I guess I would recommend that the Webster Public Library be allowed to use the Howard Park bandstand on the days listed, Tuesdays and Thursdays through the month of September.
Do we need a vote on that, John? Okay.
I would ask that for a vote to waive the deposit as well as the individual rental costs per day. I'll make that motion to waive all fees.
Trustee Belkane?
Aye.
Trustee Abolito?
Aye.
Trustee Lauer?
Aye.
Mayor Byers?
Aye.
Motion passes.
You want me to reach out or will you contact?
I'll let him know. Thank you so much.
Next we have a resolution authorizing the sign with the agreement with the county for CBDG for the West Main sidewalks. I believe that this would be a continuation of what has been done up to this particular point on the East Main sidewalk. And they've done a nice job, I think, with that on the north side. So this would be for authorization for me to sign an agreement there. You had a chance to walk it, so, drive by it. Right, well, then I would ask for a motion to sign these. I'll make that motion. Second.
Sorry, I missed that. I apologize.
Carl?
Thank you. Trustee Lauer?
Aye.
Trustee Abolito? Trustee Belkane? Mayor Byers? Motion passes.
The work that was done, Jake, on sidewalks. There were two spots, I don't know if you followed up on that and investigated where they're both on a square, if you will, where there is a sewer main, or, you know, the crack across. Do they have a remedy for that, or something like that? So they were, they had some kind of sewer.
Yeah, it's not as one, kind of an old correction, where we try to put engineering correction, we try to, six strips of foam or something, kind of make the cracks go somewhere. Concrete material, especially when they're fixed, thing like that. One thing we were talking about is in front of 66, it's a Webster telephone, manhole, there, or wall. There's Webster telephone wall, a little bit way down.
You look that way and then you have to look toward the microphone.
But the company did come back over there one where he was concerned about it, where Elson Water, they came over and made some investments to ensure that the water is coming out. And so, but we'll begin to deny it. The company's back in town in 40 days, so if there's any issues, those that will take care of that.
Well, I should know about what we were in the west.
Yeah, it typically use the county bid, so if there's remain on the bid list, then we want to utilize them.
Next we have a resolution to resolution for the Village of Webster Board of Trustees determining that the West Main Street sidewalk replacement project is a type 2 action under 6 New York NYCRR 617.5C2 of the New York State Environmental Quality Review Act, replacement, rehabilitation, or reconstruction of a structure or facility. And by definition, it's a type 2 action not have a significant impact on the environment and is otherwise precluded from environmental review under the Environmental Conservation Law. That is a resolution we need to
No.
that or just to read that. That is for the vote.
This is a type to say. That knows that placing the sidewalks on
So that's direction.
type of road.
And I would ask for motions pertaining to the replacement, rehabilitation, reconstruction of Main Street, West Main Street as a type 2 action.
I'll second it.
Trustee Lauer,
Aye.
Trustee Abolito,
Aye.
Trustee Belkane, Mayor Byers. Motion passes.
Standard workday,
Yes, that's just a,
6.
yes.
So we're looking for a resolution authorizing the village clerk to sign the records retention disposition schedule to comply with New York State. This is a resolution of the village Webster Board of Trustees to adopt a standard workday for village trustees. Standard workday for village board.
That's number 8 on the agenda. Number 6 was the record retention. Two separate. Yes.
That this,
But if you want to.
Since we're there,
So is your question is your question why are you taking the resolution on 8?
yes, we're on 6. We're talking about 8.
Well, we're talking about it, I understand.
The mayor skipped ahead. We'll go back a second.
Yes, that question is
It's for the New York State retirement system. You have to, because trustees are a part-time position, so they can figure out what your service credit is, you gotta tell them what your standard work day is. So apparently, I don't know who is, but if any of you are, signed up to be a participant in the retirement system, this is required.
basically because no one is supervising hours of an elected official, the board has to pass a resolution to set what that time is. And we have someone that's going to be put in there, so they require it. Because it's not like when my retirement or Jake's retirement, we have time cards, so that shows like what we're working. We don't really have that for an elected official.
That helps.
No, she's right, and then I think they've got, like, for part-time trustees, any part-time elected official, they just say, you work 2 days a week, or something like that.
Correct.
So that might give you credit for 3 times 6, 18 hours a week.
Yep.
And that's how you build up the service credit for the retirement system.
That makes sense.
6 hours is considered part-time and 8 hours is considered full-time. There's no less.
Right.
And I apologize, I messed you up, Daryl.
Village Board of Trustees to establish standard workday for village trustees.
Trustee Belkane? Trustee Lauer? Trustee Ippolito? Mayor Byers? Motion passes. And then I believe we'll need to go back to the retention schedule. Okay.
This is item number 6. Apologize for skipping 8. Resolution to authorize the village clerk to sign the records retention and disposition schedule to comply with the village standards. I gotta be sure that we're in the back of that is. Did we put that?
You've got it.
So, Megan from our office is she's the one that handles what we need to get rid of and what we need to keep. So she sat through a webinar, and there were some changes with New York State. And thank you, Don, because he gave us both of the resolutions for each of those, and so we're just complying with state changes.
Apparently, if you look up Article 57A of the Parks and Partial Affairs Law, that sets forth the minimum retention schedules for keeping government records set by New York State. So all this is doing is saying that the village is going to comply with it.
I believe that what this says is that there are certain records that are non-essential and that we have to retain them for 2 years at the length of time approximately.
I believe so. But is that what changed, Don? I don't know.
I'm not sure. What is it?
I thought you gave me that one.
I think the
Yes.
question was, we have records that go back years and years and.
Yes. We don't need to. Correct.
How far ahead?
We have a lot. I mean, some things we like to keep just for reference, but there's some things that we don't need to, so. And Megan has a whole spreadsheet and a program that she goes through, and every month she goes through what needs to be destroyed, and there's certain ways to destroy it and everything, and she takes care of all of that.
Probably what you guys are looking at is getting rid of those possibly that have no merit beyond 7 years or 8 years or.
Correct.
You're looking to kept for 15 years beyond that, it's history and some records like those we signed in 79 that the town has merit right now, but okay. So, I don't know if there's a need to have the established legal minimum period that you guys would know that in terms of ability to retain or the need to retain, right? So I would ask for a motion to authorize the village clerk to sign the records retention and disposition schedule and comply with the
Trustee Belkane? Trustee Lauer? Trustee Ippolito? Mayor Byers? Motion passes.
Next, we have a discussion of the village handbook. And I believe that you've had the opportunity to look it over, and in fact, in part, look it over, trying to read some of the comments that you had here. And I would just put that to you. I don't have any other particular comment on it. It seems to be really extensive, comprehensive, and we've all had a chance to look at it, and you can ask a comment on it. So at this particular point, I guess I would say, unless you have any comments you would like to make, I would ask for this motion to adopt. Do we adopt the handbook?
Yes.
Any questions on it?
Jake, get more comments. Stuff that were all really, really good points. Well thought out. I don't know why, I don't remember, I think it was March.
Yeah.
That's what it's
And I made all the changes that Don had, and everything else was pretty standard in terms of they were just making it protect the village and employees, just making things a little bit more clear and cohesive. Oh, do you want a copy? I have it down. Do you want a copy? He did. I have it right here.
One thing you need to do is you gotta still have a policy manual, because there's some policies that you aren't going to use.
Correct.
You have to adopt policy. Yeah. So basically, taking the current policy manual apart, you got employee handbook, and you also make the revisions that Jake suggested?
Yes. Yep, I made everybody's, and, also, I made some that Joe had, because you recommended, because she's been here a long time, and really, the only questions she had were just, we did want to ask, though, about the fireman part. Oh, I have notes. There's a part, it must have been a long time ago, where the village took phone calls for the fire department, and we no longer do that. I know he does, but we don't in the front office, and how it,
It's not that bad. No.
Okay.
We don't monitor calls and phone calls, we monitor calls for service, calls for requests for service. So if there's a fire call, what the call say, you need help. That's what, we monitor through radio or through our phones now.
well, it says all Webster fire calls are monitored by the village office. So I just thought,
And then the office.
okay, I just wanted to double check on that.
Yes. But, I mean, that's just basically, I think it's covering that if there's call for manpower, at the firehouse, if it's big, then I think that it's also the union contract, the union employees, that gives authorization to the employees that, it describes how to go about it. If there's emergency right next to where they are, they can go through it, somebody else can have any, or the contract or fire call, or drum.
Okay.
But it describes kind of.
My God.
Is it in here somewhere? Which one is it?
Oh,
Well,
section 4.18. Yeah, I mean,
Normal 96, but this is less than 100.4 is normally what they consider I think 98.6 is by average.
Yeah.
That's 98.6.
yeah, I'm 96 usually.
There's a range of what they consider normal. And this represents references the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. So whatever's in there, apparently when this was drafted, it was 100 degrees. So I don't know if you want to question.
Let's just asking to find out what is currently in the office for temperature. So,
I don't know. You're taking people's temperatures.
correct.
Yeah.
If somebody came in at 99, you would send them home? No.
I mean, I come to work sick all the time, but it's when it's, I think it's,
It's in line with what the CDC health public safety department so put that in line. I have no idea. I only question it because of what is in our office. So that's it.
Is it a policy in the office, or what? Or are you talking about a thermometer? Because somebody takes somebody's temperature?
we take our temperatures every day.
Okay, but I'm not aware that this board ever adopted a resolution that said you had to be a certain,
No, we didn't.
so that's just
call it.
That's just informal. For some reason, Heather picked 98.6 or something. I don't know. But
Did it say that on the form? I didn't notice that, I'm sorry. We downloaded it from the CDC. Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Just clarify.
so whatever the little form is, you should probably
Change it to.
coincide with it, so they're the same.
Okay. Thank you. change that. What was it,
I
10?
didn't realize there was a little form you guys were filling out. Because I never got any of that.
Did you, I'm sorry, what was it, 100, what was it?
This says a 100 is what's in the proposed.
Okay. And then,
Actually, probably should have been at the door to that.
I know, I put it out there. I asked it, I know.
Would have done it.
Do you?
Yes, I do. It's probably within the mission model. Everything's got a temperature.
That's funny.
Otherwise, I wouldn't be alive.
I mean, we just, if you've been, kind of what we go by is if you've been exposed, then you call your doctor. No one's had a fever or anything, but
Yeah.
Just one thing I did.
Sorry to interrupt.
I didn't see it on it.
Found our real guidelines. It wasn't a policy, it wasn't something that's bad, but
Yeah.
where we supposed to tell people, borrowed it. And, if a board member employs the temperature is 100.4 or higher, then we report it to the premises not returning the effects of your test and around the third month before the third month. That's what's in our real policy.
Well, we want you to-
This May, when we opened the office back on the 7th, it was 100.4, and that was full alcoholic guidance.
what would happen? There's a form that Megan wanted to ask me. I just had to do it.
Well, let's just change it to 100.4.
Okay. In the handbook? Okay. Okay. Can you read it?
Yeah, there's a section in the handbook that mentions references, material safety standards, meets and we're switching over heavily as it mechanisms of global harmonization system. So, you have pictures of our words, we have no idea what it is. So, and they're from MSDSs and just SDSs. So, they used to know if something said danger on it, or if it said maybe it's corrosive or chemical hazards in fish, you could have found that in the bomb. I have no idea what that means. But that's the way they switched, that's what they switched to. So, it's supposed to be better, I guess. But yeah, I think that's,
Make that change?
yeah.
You want to give that back to me? After? And then, we also had a question on, I think it's 4.20, I apologize, I don't have the page number, but it was computer data protection, and which a complete backup of village, so I gave it to you, sorry. Is that computer data protection?
That's Social Security. You said 4.2.
But I'm looking at the gray behind, I was hoping that's what it was. Okay. Is there a section that says computer data protection? It's number 1. It was a complete backup of village servers is completed daily by the IT clerk, which we don't have her anymore. I don't know who that was. And we don't keep them in the village vault, so we just want to change it. We keep them at our safety deposit box, and I go every day and switch it out. Well, once a week and switch it out. So we don't keep it here. Correct. So I just want to change that.
Why is that in an employee handbook in the first one? It's not like
I think that's because it was in ours.
huh?
It was in ours, so they brought over, they really didn't change many of the things from our original handbook, they just updated it. So I don't know, can we try to just take that out, or what?
Well, if you're taking out, just going into the policy manual.
Yeah.
not an employee handbook.
Well, right, take out the part that we don't do and then put it in the policy manual. Doesn't matter to me. Except definitely the wording is not correct anymore.
I don't, under the New York State Shield Act, and I don't know if local governments are exempt, but every business is supposed to get a, data protection policy. And most businesses do not, it's a separate policy, it's not an employee manual.
Right. I think we got a last minute comment on the Republic Forum. If it's okay if I read it, I'm asking Megan to screenshot it to me. I just saw this, I'm sorry. They sent it earlier, but we didn't see it. Yes. I just wanted to. Yes. Yes.
Did Don say he had more notes? Very good. We can hold off on it. Well, you can prove it if you still have it out.
It's going to be $85 an hour if we push it out any longer, because we have a year and we're coming up to it on 8/31. I sent it out in March.
Your job's not done when you just hit send, you just circle back.
What?
Are you satisfied?
Yeah. I'm supposed to keep it in the employee handbook.
Yeah, your hand's pretty good. Then I'll entertain a motion to accept the employee handbook as written and as corrected or added to. I'll make that motion. I'll second.
Trustee Abolito? Trustee Lauer?
Aye.
Mayor Byers?
Aye.
Motion passes, and I'll be sure to send out a final, because, so I'll send the changes to her at HR Works, and she'll come back with a final copy.
Anyway then, let's go to your comment.
Okay. It's from Lori Reynolds. I'm afraid to go away from the live stream though, because last time I did that, it said, please read the message I sent for the comment that was sent using message at the top of the Facebook page. I'm afraid it'll end.
It's the same thing that
I believe it's similar, yes.
earlier to the village.
Yeah. Let me just, do you mind just give me 1 second? I'll pull it up on my phone. I apologize. I can't get it. I'm sorry. I can definitely send it out to you tomorrow. I'll email it to you, out to the board members. It's from Lori. I apologize. I don't want to go away from this or.
I'm just trying to see if it was the same thing that she that showed up on my Facebook.
I apologize.
And what I would like to do this time before we go to the transportation DPW and all,
something that the town supervisor said. But the town supervisor found out the last 24 hours. You know what that is? I have no idea. I think Robert needs to go for me to find out what that is. Maybe the town supervisor would like to enlighten us what that is. I get that. So you don't know that. Mr. President, thank you for all of your hard work.
Is Scotland wants that town to not feel that as presented it was a good deal of work. Like some of the things that have been presented tonight and looked at reports, the length of time that there seems to be indicated crossover point where at some particular point in the future, the cost currently is less and more advantageous for the village to stay in the home. At some point in the future, there will be crossover point. It will change then, or it will be more advantageous to leave that crossover point. Seems to be indicated that perhaps we'll see. I don't know. My question is, how do you feel about that? Is that something that you agree with in terms of how things look with that graph? Those are concerns, I guess, that I have. That are they the projections that are there? Are those reasonable for us to assume?
I think with the understanding the information that's collected and presented for it to be projects that created the graphs, that is the best information we have seen. So those graphs, as they were presented in the presentation, came directly from these projects. So as long as you trust the information that's in that, that goes into that, and you accept the assumptions that are made to generate those numbers, then that is the best information that's presented by those numbers. We've talked at length about what is and what isn't presented by those numbers, but in purely within the context of, at some point, the costs increased, or the rate of cost increase for the village opening option, as presented by all the numbers that we compiled. There appears to be a crossover point around about 12 to 15 years that we believe is a relation of the increase in maintenance costs that we presented in the asset investment schedule around that time with the additional phase 2 and phase 3 projects, so to speak, that were in our original project. Now, one thing I will mention, has been kind of talked about a lot, is the approach to generate the quote-unquote year one costs that the town, the P&L presented to the town for the town of the project, and then move forward from that point by P&L through each one plan is a different approach than the one that we had looked at for the project, which is specifically designating certain points in time in the future where it would be, and again, this is just a suggestion as to when that investment would need to be made by the village. So there is a difference in philosophy behind how those future costs are presented in terms of the timeline, and that may change here or there when those two paths are crossed. So, for example, where we had designated two future capital projects, if you recall, the reason why we did that was because our estimate of when the life of the infrastructure and the equipment needed that investment to rehabilitate or to replace them, that coincided with many items happening in that year. So one approach might be to combine all of those individual costs that otherwise you would have to save money from down within the reserve funds, and to capitalize those at a debt obligation at that point, and therefore create a capital project. That is not the approach that E&L is taking for the regional plan and for the town plan. They've looked ahead and said, at certain points there are some costs involved, but we're going to take what that annual cost is and apply that from day one. So that when you look at their curve, it looks much smoother across the 30-year period, where ours kind of jumps up in terms of the increase in capital debt, and ours also includes, well, did include initially existing debt obligations that the village has in their existing plan, and at some point those obligations will return. So it goes kind of a little bit more uneven, because we specifically targeted certain dates that the rates or the costs will be.
Glenn, I had a question. When Larry Maggio said that the town had presented it that it's, now or never, you have to do the regional. Is there a reason that the town's phase 2 of their plan, that engineering wise, that at some point in the future, you still couldn't make the changes to accommodate the village? Because otherwise, why is it got to be this? Couldn't you just do those things in Maggio?
I can't speak, with 100% accuracy as to whether or not the changes that would be needed in the town plan to turn it into a regional plan and a village vote is 100%. It has to be now or it has to be sometime in the future. That it quite possibly could be phased, but that wasn't the scenario that we were tasked with looking at. I do understand from the perspective of there are opportunities, funding opportunities, and once you go down the path of pursuing those opportunities and installing the capital approvals, you can't go back and switch that in the future. So I do remember there was I believe during the presentation, a commenter who said, why couldn't we defer the choice between upgrading the village plan or going to a regional plan until 50 years, because that's where it showed the paths, the curves crossing. The reality is the curves are crossing because you're making those decisions today, and you have to make those decisions today because you have infrastructure that needs to be rehabilitated, both at the town plan and at the village plan. So both the town and the village have to make those commitments today, because there are certain things that have to be addressed. There are economies of scale and efficiencies that if you make the changes to one process, let's say, it's a lot less costly to incorporate the changes, say, for example, in future expansion for a regional facility. To do that when you're making changes to the process anyway, because you have to. So, but sometimes you can look at projects in a modular fashion and say we're only going to upgrade and construct the improvements that we need to make for the current situation, and if there's an opportunity in the future to bring more flow, we do that. And that's actually how the town had phased in. It's how the town broke out their project into 2 phases to begin with. So in the first phase, they made some changes to clarifiers, secondary clarifiers, but there was a piece of secondary clarifiers that they weren't going to touch until phase 2, because that would be what provides the capacity for the villages to come in. So they're not upgrading all of their secondary clarifiers as part of the phase 1 project, as far as I'm concerned.
I did get the statement. Maggie was able to find it for me. If you want me to read it, I can read it after though.
No questions. No questions. No, I know this, this is one of the questions I know the answer to. This is the first time we looked at alternatives to Village Webster treatment zone sewage. There's
So I will say the analysis that we did within the village evaluation for the option to go to the town is not the same analysis that was done for the regional facility. And during the presentation, they kind of laid out the reason behind that was that the town was already doing their own evaluation and engaged in the engineer to do that evaluation. And they didn't necessarily want to step on the town's toes as they were doing that. We wanted to wait to see what the outcome of their evaluation was before we explore that in detail. So what we did present in the 2017 report was a plan that would reactivate essentially the infrastructure that's at the town site that's owned by the village. But as an engineer, I don't believe that is the right solution that was presented because it hasn't worked in the past. So moving to upgrade that infrastructure, essentially building a lot of the same infrastructure we upgraded with the village plan, just doing it at the town site for the cost. So I wouldn't look at that as a viable alternative at that particular point in time. That was all that we were able to present on. So now that we have the analysis from the regional project, that is much more feasible from my standpoint, from an engineering standpoint, than what we necessarily presented in the original 2017 report for the town option. The county option has not been discussed at all, as far as I'm aware, since we presented that in 2017. I don't know if the county will still entertain that, but it seems to be very open to the idea at the time. There were some concerns about the capacity of the sewer ratio that goes to the plant. As I'm sure you're aware, there are some very complex issues at that in itself. I don't know the status of that. I don't know how the county is dealing with that. I do know I'm working with another community on the other side of the county. They have a second plan that is called Northwest Project. I'm working with the town of Kendall in Williams County, and we've been working very closely with the county to see whether they would accept flow. So in principle, there is an agreement for the county to take flows from an outside user into their facility as long as it makes technical sense. So I don't see why there would be any reason that the county would be not amenable to exploring that option, either with the town or the village place.
Speaking of these changes, discussion about different options for the work town, for the village. Is there any reason why we have to? Is there anything really? Are the plants not operating, are we not being permitted, are we not receiving, or removing the solids that we need to remove, or the organics that we need to remove, or providing poured water quality out of our effluent that we have to make some change, or we have to do something?
So at the time, if you recall, when we did the study, there was some operational issues that were happening with the plant. Most notably, the treatment point. We weren't sure whether or not the secondary treatment that we were provided by the treatment point was providing the quality that was required. We thought that from a technical perspective, it could be because you were having a circulation. That was a function of we had some very antiquated treatment building pumps and control system that allowed you to use those pumps in the most efficient manner. And as part of the recommendations, we provided some costs to upgrade those components. Subsequently, the town and the village worked together to determine that actually some of the readings that we were seeing were not actually failing necessarily technical capabilities of the infrastructure of the equipment, but more that there was some misreadings of the data as it was coming back from the lab, or the exact amount of that, what specifically it was. So, so, the village plan currently, as I understand, is within the limits of the SAP plan. There are obviously concerns about the age of the infrastructure of the equipment, like there would be any facility that's been since the 60s and 70s. Really, the heart of the process has changed since that time. There have been some improvements made, most notably in the network flexibility in 2016, 2017, that, has definitely made an impact to increasing the longevity of the plan. And you can kind of see the opposite side of that is issues that you have in the dynasty as a direct result of not being able to remove the rags, which ultimately end up getting accepted by the squadron to the digest system, damaging the payment system. So now that that process is in place, we don't anticipate we will have the same kind of issues, for example, the diagnoses that we once had. So there is merit to the upgrades that we made. When we did our reform, we didn't see that there was any regulation that was technically not under Steve's permit, so not currently required to report to the DEC how we operate. We have that obligation to the town. The town has that obligation to the DEC. Currently, I don't see that there is any need to necessarily upgrade any facility within the plan to meet those kind of requirements. Now, there are opportunities to upgrade facilities, and there are other issues that we have to deal with, for example, odors, as that relates to percentage operations. You cease composting, you cease leachate, you see that septic receiving is possible. It has been a revenue source for the village, so there's no reason why we couldn't implement those upgrades and continue to have that facility available to the village. That was in the plan and in the recommendations in 2017 report. The only other changes that have changed the process, changed the plan, have come about because in 2020, with the new administration coming in the town, they changed the assumptions that we had had in 2017 that the operating protocols between the town and the village would stay the same. So the majority of our upgrade report was really about replacing old equipment and inefficient equipment with the latest state of the art. It wasn't changing any of the processes, and it wasn't governed by any changing regulations that were driving you to add new processes. So with the town dictating to the village that it would no longer allow you to discharge significant amounts of product and would require the village to set the IMA to the town of the village. That then required us to look at, well, how would the village be able to discharge its wastewater? And that would have to be by a response permit. So we negotiated and discussed that. We discussed the improvements that would be necessary to the village plan, have to be added to the village process in order for it to be a fully functional wastewater plan with a species permit on its own. Now, unlike a lot of other what we call pre-treatment plants, which generally find industrial processes that discharge into a publicly owned treatment works that's owned by a municipality, has a species permit, you have the majority of a wastewater plant, a municipal wastewater plant, because that's what it was originally back before the 1930s, and then it was upgraded. It was always treated as its own facility. The only difference that came about in the 60s and 70s was that you now discharge via a common pipe with the town, and the DEC at the time, or certainly the PA at the time, dictated that the town had to hold the species permit. They didn't like the idea of the village and the town having their own separate permits. They forced the town to take on that species permit. So that's what created the situation you have. But in terms of what additional upgrades you would do now in order to obtain the species permit, the only new process you would need would be to add disinfection. They also want to see the redundancy of the tripping filter, because right now we only have one unit, and if you were to design the plant today, the standards would require that you have multiple units to treat the flow, so that if you had to take one unit down to maintain it, you have that capability. Currently, you don't have that in your site. That's something that the town has been, at least ARC has been kind of noted that that's a concern of theirs, because they do hold the species permit on behalf of the village, they allow them to discharge from their permit. So, other than that, there really aren't that many changes, or any other changes that would be necessary to the village plan to have it as a fully functional standalone facility.
Have you ever seen, I've seen your experience with wastewater plants, the significant other user designation is kind of unique. Usually it's a significant industrial user designation. They presumably get local pre-treatment standards and those requirements of the EPA. And, local standards would also have that. Most supervisors are going to have those in there. Have you ever seen another instance where a significant other user or significant industrial user permit was denied or said it was denied when there wasn't violations, when there weren't exceedances, when there weren't excursions, or issues with the discharge from the, or especially if you ever seen it when the pre-treatment system that is discharged into the holder, or the POTW that holds the speeds permit, had 3 licensed operators at that facility.
I have never seen personally a situation where a concert where a POTW denied the opportunity to renew an existing permit to a significant industrial user if there was no underlying reason for that. I have seen a lot of situations where there's been concern about the industry not meeting the requirements of the permit, and obviously that has a detrimental effect on the operations of the municipality at their plan, and they threatened to isolate or withdraw the permit if the affected industry didn't comply with their requirements. But I've never seen it taken away without that being an issue, because most of the time the industry and the municipality have a symbiotic relationship. The municipality wants the industry there, the industry provide employment, taxes, whatever you want from that. So it's usually in the best interest of the municipality and the industry to work together to resolve the issues. But if you have a persistent offender, then the POTW is one of the rights to say that we're going to close our flow to you because we don't have the confidence that you will be able to treat the flow to the standard that it needs to be treated for us to comply with that.
Yeah, in fact, I think most of the permits are doing the response measures, and one of the points CFR requires in the local pre-treatment standards that you have response guidance within the permit.
And I think what a couple of communities as well, which the DEC has gone into the municipality, so you need to upgrade your sewer use law such that the penalties are kind of more commensurate with standard guidance system to have basically teeth to compel the industry to
I know being one of the leaders is there. So before you change the subject, so how can the town just arbitrarily say we're not going to renew your permit?
I think the town always has that opportunity. They always have that option.
But it's just like with an industrial user, you got to have some reason for it, and the wastewater has to go somewhere, right? So
I mean, I guess it kind of depends on the relationship between the POTW and industry. But I don't believe there's anything that prevents the town from unilaterally changing that unless you have an IMA or some other kind of legal agreement in place that says that you're not going to do that. I think most of the permits I see generally give the permit issuer the highest level of ability to, or discretion I should say, whether or not to issue that permit or reissue it, because usually the permits are reissued on an annual basis. But I don't believe there's anything, maybe wrong in this, that prevents them from not reissuing the permit. They may choose to say that we don't want that type of industry in our town.
But they can't say, we don't want the village anymore. That's beyond the town, because the difference, as Jay says, is the village isn't an industry, it's another municipality.
I don't know if that legally has more weight.
So,
The municipality has more weight in that situation.
If you read the town's industrial pretreatment law, there is an appeal process in there, built in. Ultimately, I would think, and I don't think the village really wants to go this route, but, they have some action against the town saying it was arbitrary capricious, you gotta take our flow. Then you get a court to order it, but they're gonna sue the town to do it. Unless, can the DEC or the EPA step in and say, we're gonna require you to get your own use permit?
If they believe, so I believe as far as the environmental conservation board goes, I believe that gives the DEC the right to come in and say, this situation is not working to protect the environment. So if they believe that that is the case, then I believe they have the right to say, we need to separate these two out. As it relates to whether the town can arbitrarily take that decision, I think what it would be is if it were to go to court, they would look at what is the burden that is created by that action. So if the village has been used to sending this flow and having it go via this part of the town to discharge into the lake, and all of a sudden shut it off, and when it's 2.5 million gallons a day of flow going, I think that was something that would have to be taken into consideration, but I'm wrong. So that's...
If I can, I don't waste village use deciding to flow that way in the town. The town sought and solicited our involvement in the 2014 upgrade of the outfall pipe. The agreement that we have in place, we can't bond money beyond the useful life of something that's going to, how it's going to benefit us. And we were allowed to, with the understanding that agreement is not going to change. We've invested in that pipe that's going out to the lake. We're, 1/3, the sharing of the cost of that pipe is based on design capacity in proportion to the whole. So I think we paid 33% of that upgrade to the outfall pipe, with the understanding that we're still going to use it. Now, if we did go down the path of integral speeds from that, my assumption we'd still use the same pipe, and that's what's kind of almost want to say comical about the discussion, because nothing changes except for a definition. Because the pipe where we discharge would be, functionally, the water wouldn't know any difference if the water could know something, but the water wouldn't know any difference between before the change or after a change, because it would all act and flow the exact same way. So that's just, all it is additional burdens. There's discussion at one time about protecting the town plan. Our flow doesn't go through the town plan. It bypasses the town plan, and it is chlorinated as the final step before it goes out. And that's just, and actually what happens is the town's flow is chlorinated at a level that's going to account for our flow as well, and they merge together and go into the outfall pipe with certain retention time in that outfall pipe and time to get the chlorine residual down to the acceptable level before, and that's all calculated before the final discharge location out into the lake. So there's not really a threat to the town plant or to the town facilities. There would be a threat to the town permit, but like I argued before, we're the only discharger to the town or to any other publicly owned treatment works that I know that has 3 licensed operators, not just licensed to the minimum standards, licensed, all of them are the license to the chief plant operator, that required level for the type of plant that they're operating. We could have a 3 and then 2 grade 2 operators. We have 3 grade 3 operators. So it does seem kind of arbitrary, and I guess I'm just going to leave it at that. But I have a few other things real quick, and I apologize, and I thank everybody for allowing me. Just a real quick, hopefully, the year 1 numbers as presented accurately reflect the cost to the village residents, or are they inclusive of all the costs of the village customers?
You mean what was presented in the presentation?
Well, they've been presented, year one numbers have been presented in 26 or 27 different iterations. In any of those iterations, have they accurately reflected what the village residents would pay on the first year of anything?
So I will say that, as I mentioned earlier, there was a difference in the way that the numbers were calculated between our approach and Leon's approach. Leon's approach, the net present value approach, ours was based on the asset management approach, which did actually look at what would be the investment costs, or the gross investment, the operating costs as well. In given years, early on, I think there was a discussion about how do we bring those two things together, when the net present value number is really an average over the period of life of the loan that they're looking at. So I think about 6 months ago, maybe, but we did sit down with you and say they'd asked us to break down where our numbers were on a year-on-year basis. So I feel the numbers that were presented on Wednesday night were closer to a year one number as it relates to the treatment plans than what we potentially had before, because we had more time to analyze it. But what it doesn't include is what was presented on Wednesday, but it doesn't include the impact of existing debt on the treatment plan. I don't know if the town's existing debt is also excluded from that, their side of the equation. And it doesn't include any discussion about the collection system. So in the presentation, and before the presentation, we were on a discussion about how to use their collection systems and operations, when the way that the sewer operations are budgeted for the town is essentially right now. And we tried to make our best estimate of how those numbers will be broken out. The reality is they are broken out in the village budget, so they are just a guess right now. So because of that uncertainty in that discussion, the group that put together the presentation decided that we were just going to focus on the treatment plan. And the collection system costs, specifically the costs, would be left out of that equation, because the infrastructure that the town maintains is very different from the infrastructure that the village maintains. The number of the pump stations, the lines, the sewer, the age, the composition of the utilities, the quality of all of that. And honestly, we haven't had an opportunity to evaluate that in the village. It's not had an opportunity to evaluate that for the town.
Well, I'm looking at it, one of our residents comes in to Village Hall, gets out their wallet, is there a number that's been presented to us as year one number that they would go and reach in their wallet and take that amount out and be accurate? I mean, it's a question I know the answer to already, so, but the year one number is not reflective of the year one number. The presentation last week was, like you said, just for treatment. O&M, the average maintenance for the treatment plant and the debt on the treatment plant. And in addition to those two elements that we go into what the village would pay for a region, like we said, the village only project, we would have O&M for treatment and collection and debt now. And in fact, the surgeons that we've only done this, for 5 years, we really don't want to talk about that as far as how much divided by the number of loans, this figure. This figure, I came up with $192. I think it's a little bit low, but pretty close to what I had for the last year and a half, 2 years. And a regional plan, what was presented last week was O&M and treatment costs for the regional, the village portion of which would be about $700,000, and new debt service for the village for the regional plan, the town plan, and that'd be about $500,000 per year. In addition to those costs, that's what was shown as $73 to $109 for the respective. I don't have those, it's in there somewhere, but I think that's what they were, 73 and 109. What also we have to calculate, the board would have to consider, the residents, most importantly, would have to consider when they're getting their wallet out, is that then in addition to those costs, we have collection system costs, we have existing debt costs that weren't part of this presentation, we have short-lived assets costs, which are part of the presentation. All those would be added up together, divided by the same thing. And the actual cost of the villages, and I didn't make these numbers up, I took the numbers out of here, page 36 and 37, where they gave us, $40 per EDU, $62 per EDU, and then finally $77 per EDU on the phase 10 projects. And these proposed is $2.6 million operation and maintenance budget, and then they came up with the debt figures. It was, $22.7 million, I think is what their, $31.7 million what the total debt for a regional project was. That's spread out over 24,821 users. I looked at these numbers a couple times. Long story short, that figure comes out to be $266. Does that sound out of whack? Does that sound inaccurate? Does that sound kind of the ballpark of where it might be?
It sounds like in the ballpark, and I think that one of the slides did show the increase over the current charges that both for the town and the residents. It showed that the increase in the year one numbers to be 27% for the village open project and 54% to the village residents. So definitely in terms of the increase in costs from where they are today to 2023 when the project essentially start, that's how those numbers work.
There's an interesting mix when you look at all these numbers. There was discussion about crossover in 20, 30, whatever, 12 years now. Crossover with the village project, becomes more expensive. And again, this was project only cost. This wasn't operation maintenance or any of that stuff. And at the same time, in this presentation, another information went out to the residents. There was information about Xerox. What happens if Xerox goes away? What happens if Xerox fails? So I looked at those things too. And Xerox fails or goes away. Xerox flow goes away. Which some of the other efforts that we have going on right now, the visions that we have for, bottom line is I think Webster's a great place to live, a great place to work, and play from something that's going to, how it's going to benefit us. And we were allowed to, understanding that agreement's not going to change. We've invested in that pipe that's going out to the lake, where 1/3, the sharing of the cost of that pipe is based on design capacity in proportion to the whole. So I think we paid 33% of that upgrade to the outfall pipe, with the understanding that we're still going to use it. Now, if we did go down the path and did our own speeds program, my assumption we'd still use the same pipe, and that's what's almost, you almost want to say comical about the discussion, because nothing changes except for a definition. Because the pipe where we discharge would be, functionally, the water wouldn't know any difference if the water could know something, but the water wouldn't know any difference between before the change or after a change, because it would all act and flow the exact same way. So that's just, all it is additional burdens. There's discussion at one time about protecting the town plan. Our flow doesn't go through the town plan. It bypasses the town plan and it is chlorinated as the final step before it goes out. And that's just, and actually what happens is the town's flow is chlorinated at a level that's going to account for our flow as well, and they merge together and
go into the outfall pipe with certain retention time in that outfall pipe and time to get the chlorine residual down to the acceptable level before, and that's all calculated before the final discharge location out into the lake. So there's not really a threat to the town plant or to the town facilities. There would be a threat to the town permit, but like I argued before, we're the only discharger to the town or to any other publicly owned treatment works that I know that has 3 licensed operators, not just licensed to the minimum standards, licensed. All of them are the license to the chief plant operator, that required level for the type of plant that they're operating. We could have a 3 and then 2 grade 2 operators. We have 3 grade 3 operators. So it does seem kind of arbitrary, and I guess I'm just going to leave it at that. But I did a few other things real quick, and I apologize, and I thank everybody for allowing me. Just a real quick, hopefully, the year 1 numbers as presented accurately reflect the cost to the village residents, or are they inclusive of all the costs of the village customers?
What was presented in the presentation?
Well, they've been presented, year 1 numbers have been presented in 26 or 27 different iterations. In any of those iterations, have they accurately reflected what the village residents would pay on the first year of anything?
So I will say that, as I mentioned earlier, there was a difference in the way that the numbers were calculated between our approach and the other approach. The other approach, the present value approach, was based on the asset management approach, which did actually look at what would be the investment costs, or close to investment, the operating costs as well. In given years. Early on, I think there was a discussion about how to bring those 2 things together, when net present value number is really an average over the period of life with growth and everything else. So maybe about 6 months ago, maybe, but we did sit down with them and say, they asked us to break down where our numbers were on a yearly basis. So I feel the numbers that were presented on Wednesday night were close to being 1 number as it relates to the treatment plans. Than what we potentially have for, because we had more time to analyze any projection. But what it doesn't include is what was presented on Wednesday. It doesn't include the impact of existing debt on treatment plan. I don't know if the town's existing debt also excluded from that, their side of the equation. And it doesn't include discussion about the collection systems. So in the presentation, and before the presentation, there was a lot of discussion about how to use the collection systems in operations, when the way that the sewer operations budget, the town essentially right now. And we tried to make our best estimate of how those numbers were broken out. The reality is they are broken out in the village budget, so they are just a guess right now. So because of that uncertainty in that discussion, we put together the presentation, decided we were just going to focus on the treatment plan and the collection system costs, specifically the costs, would be left out of that equation because the infrastructure that the town maintains is very different from the infrastructure that the village maintains in terms of the pump station, lines, sewer, age, competition, utilities, having to do all of that. And honestly, we haven't had an opportunity to evaluate that in the village. It's not an opportunity to evaluate that for the town.
Well, I'm looking at it. One of our residents comes in to the village hall, gets up their wallet. Is there any number that's been presented to us as a year 1 number that they would be able to reach in their wallet and take that amount out and it would be accurate? I mean, it's a question I know the answer to already, but if the year 1 number is not reflective of the year 1 number in the presentation last week, what is Lee considered just for the treatment? Going on the average maintenance for the treatment plant and the debt. So you go into what the village would pay for a regional, like this is the village only project, we would have an O&M for treatment and collection that we have now. And that assertion that we've only done this, for 5 years, we really don't want to talk about that as far as how much it is. I think that we've got our rates the last 2 years. We raised our rates 2 years ago because we were anticipating starting our own project. I remember the discussion on it, saying that we raised the rate yet, and we're not starting the project when we do it yet. And we actually, in our budget, have lines for principal and interest for a bond, for a $5 million bond for the start of the project. So the answer at that time was yes, we could do that. But the elements, if I can real quick, figuring this out, we ended up with going on treatment collection costs. It's our ability to our sewer budget, basically. Our existing debt, now that's included in our sewer budget. And then if you're figuring out varying items, it would be the phase one to start with. If we want to do year one, let's start with phase one. And then short-lived assets are a component of that as well. You add all those up together, divided by the number of loans, you get a figure. This figure, I came up with $192. I think it's a little bit low, but pretty close to what I had for the last year and a half, 2 years. And a regional plan, what was presented last week was O&M and treatment costs for the regional, the village portion of which would be about $700,000, and new debt service for the village for the regional plan, the town plan, and that'd be about $500,000 per year. In addition to those costs, that's what was shown as $73 and $109 for the respective. I don't have those, it's in there somewhere, but I think that's what they were, 73 and 109. What also we have to calculate, the board would have to consider, and the residents, most importantly, would have to consider when they're getting their wallet out, is that then in addition to those costs, we have collection system costs, we have existing debt costs that weren't part of this presentation, we have short-lived assets costs which aren't part of the presentation. All those would be added up together, divided by the same thing. And the actual cost of the village, and I didn't make these numbers up, I took the numbers out of here, page 36 and 37, where they gave us, $40 per EDU, $62 per EDU, and then finally $77 per EDU on the phase 2 projects. And these proposed $2.6 million operation and maintenance budget, and then they came up with the debt figures. It was, it's $22.7 million, I think is what they're, $31.7 million for the total debt for a regional project was. That's spread out over 24,821 users. And I looked at these numbers a couple times. So long story short, that figure comes out to be $266. Does that sound out of whack? Does that sound inaccurate? Does that sound kind of in the ballpark of where it might be?
It sounds like in the ballpark, and I think that one of the slides did show the increase over the current charges that both for the town and the residents. It showed that the increase in the year one numbers to be 27% for the village open project and 54% to the village residents for the regional project. So definitely in terms of the increase in costs from where they are today to 2023 when the project essentially starts, that's how it's going.
And there's an interesting mix when you look at all these numbers. There was discussion about crossover in 20, 30, whatever, 12 years now. Crossover with the village project becomes more expensive. And again, this was project only costs. This wasn't operation and maintenance or any of that stuff. And at the same time, in this presentation and other information went out to the residents. There was information about Xerox, what happened to Xerox goes away, what happened to Xerox fails. So I looked at those things too, and Xerox fails or goes away, Xerox flow goes away, which some of the other efforts that we have going on right now, the visions that we have for, bottom line is I think Webster's a great place to live, a great place to work, and it's a desirable place to come, especially if we stand there out in one of these around Monroe County. Xerox vote went away. It would take an additional 7 years before we even broke even, because we'd be so far in advance, we'd be up about $800-900 over that entire lifetime if they run in total. And we paid a little bit more this year, a little bit more the following year, a little bit more, so it wouldn't be until 2042 that we actually start to feel an impact. Now we're gonna end up paying more, and I can send you the stuff and look at it, but it's a lot deeper than just a gloss over or look at the cost of a project. There's a lot more pieces and parts to it that have to be considered. So when our homeowners and our residents or customers come in here, they have an understanding when they take out their wallet what it's going to be. Because if they were to watch that presentation last week, or Steve, no matter what, 10 years later, it's going to be different. Might as well be split. We heard some of that today. But we also heard people, a few of them, I think ones that are in, ones that called it, saying, no, it's more than that. And that's, and I don't frankly think we need to study this more. I love working with you. I think it's great that there's someone that potentially talks more than me. I don't know.
Can I have a question? Morgan?
Yeah.
I'm just wondering.
Yeah, I guess I did, because in one way,
Sure, at this point, I'm just wondering if you have a question.
is any of this accurate? Does it accurately reflect what the village residents would have to pay? Or as I've been saying for 3 years, does this not accurately reflect what the village residents would have to take out of their wallet and pay for sewage treatment?
So what I'm saying is, as I mentioned before, the presentation, the information that was given in the presentation last year was limited to analysis of the 2 projects for debt and O&M, and the new debt and O&M for the wastewater.
So not reflected. So my final last question, with the switching over to the regional plan, would we be able to capitalize on the value that we already have? Well, two-part question. The return on investment that we anticipated when we made the investment in 2007, 2009, 2012, 2014 for the plan, and also the value of the $1.4 million grant and the 0% financing for the balance of the project. Would that be something that's retained in any way when we went to a regional plan, or does that go away and get absorbed in? With the hopes that we might get something else.
So I'll answer the second part of that question first. The grant, it's not an award, but it's an award that the commitment, I should say, from the state from the city is for $1.4 million of grant and 0% option for the project to be submitted based upon the recommendations from the 2017. Based upon the recommendations from the 2017 report. That, according to, we've had discussions with the EFC, if the different projects from the one that was presented was submitted for financing, then that would have to be re-evaluated by the EFC. So there is a chance that the grant is awarded and the 0% financing could go away, because the project is based on a score that incorporates a number of things, including the income levels of the village, and that award is specifically made based upon the project that was submitted.
And so the last question, that grant and 0% financing equate to about $180,000 a year, or
I forget what the number was off the top of my head, but it's a significant amount.
and I think that's about $30 per year.
So as of right now, the state just published a draft budget release for the next year, the intent use plan on the state program, and the project has been moved from the project category B to the project category D because we received a financing commitment from the state to that. So that, as it stands, is good until 2021 when we would have to submit a financing application.
And that's for the 5 million.
That's for the project that is set at 5 million, $75 million. As it stands, the village owned project now, because of conditions that may use in 2020, counter disinfection and the additional drinking filter, and some other modifications, that's closer to 10.9 million. And what I don't know right now, I've had conversations with the city, is whether they be willing to extend the 25% grant that is the basis for the 1.4 million to 25% of 10.9 million. And I would suspect 2027, the grant amounts and levels, they can't be back up because of that. Now, there are opportunities, financing opportunities that may be available to us. So, for example, if you add disinfection, there is a separate pot of money that goes towards funding projects, portions of disinfection projects that you then be eligible for. If that was already factored into our the award that was already made, the maximum for the DFC would allow is 25%. Because the 1.4 is not 25% of the 10.9 million, they may allow us to apply that disinfection grant on top of what's being provided. So we potentially could get up to $2 million, we think, right now in grant, the 10.9 million. But there's always the risk that if you reapply based on a larger project, that you won't score as high. And if you remember, the project that the village submitted was the last project above what's called the subsidy line, which means that if there were any other projects that scored better than that as the next go around, that project would have been done with us and we would have received the subsidy that the state has committed to. So that's all related to the general project. The other part of the question we had, it's a general kind what was the first part of the question that we had?
I was talking about the variable of the.
Oh, right, that's right. So, so one of the things that has been discussed about is if the town and village report the regional alternative, what does the management of that look like? Is it separately owned or partially owned by the town and village, or does it make sense to create a new entity, essentially a legal entity that, for all intents and purposes, manages that? So that happens a lot on the water side. So for example, the Monroe County Water Authority is a regional authority, and it's empowered to raise debt, charge rates and stuff for providing services to people regardless of which municipality they live. So that I haven't heard of that happening on the sewer side, so I don't know if the sewer districts are subject to a different law when it comes to creating authorities. But if that is feasible, then I think that it is possible to throw out there that the authority will be able to then acquire assets from both the town and the village and make it their own assets and compensate the town and the village for the debt, the existing debt that we have outstanding. So in your example, the project was completed in 2007, we have 13 years out of a 30-year loan, I believe. It's on there, so you have another 17 years left of debt obligations, which I believe the discussions were that debt couldn't be transferred from one municipality to another. I don't know if the debt can be transferred from a municipality to an authority, but what an authority could do is pay and compensate the municipalities for the value of that asset, which you would continue to pay that debt off and satisfy those obligations until the very due time. So I don't know if that's the only option that's available to both the town and the village, but it seems like it's a reasonable one. And then moving forward, I think there's a lot of merit to a regional authority because it takes away this question about, well, I'm a town resident or I'm a village resident, and how do I know that I'm getting a fair shake? Because you're all seen as the same by the authority, just as the same way that the Monroe County Water Authority views all its customers the same way. And then the question is, okay, if that is an acceptable arrangement for treatment, then there are opportunities to look at that for collection systems as well. So that's kind of making the assumption that that's the way that the town and the village want to proceed, is to look at a regional consolidation of their treatment and sewer operations. But that is one type of arrangement that I'm aware of that might be worth exploring.
I know now it's really fun. You mentioned the difference between the original plan when we talked about the 5.7 by 20 million and it's about 29 million. Is it correct to assume that more than half of that increase was related to requirements, if you will, or things that are now being required
also back in 2017 had a low contingency built into our project. The town committed to that project, so as we move forward with the visual alternative, we decided to increase the contingency on that by an extra 10%. So all of those kind of factored into the project to its current level of 10.9%. So 10.9%.
Thank you very much. Thanks for
Jake, we still have another resolution. We still have another resolution that you had mentioned with this water filtration or air filtration.
Thank you.
So for during Jake's section, and I don't want to, if Don has anything, I just wanted to remind him that he wanted to go over this air quality.
Yes, I sent this out, month or so ago. We got, we discussed it with air quality improvements. And you can say you're familiar with that at your place. Yeah, and we saw them because they did the, two air handling units on the roof there. Long story short, there's two parts to this. One of them is the, putting a higher filtration on here, but we saw that for a position I didn't want to, or the company that did this. I didn't want to just put a big filter in all fans that work against some bad pressure and avoid the warranty of this. So let's make sure it all works together. And they agreed, thought that was a good approach, so they were happy that we got that done. They absolutely said it would have worked. The other portion of this is an air ionization technology. And some sci-fi stuff to me, but apparently they ionize the air so that it makes the contractor feel better. So the balloon on your head that gets charged, it sticks to the filter better and more efficient particles in the air. So looking at talking to Marcia about this, I'm going to talk to that for as well and get information from them. We have in our the 162200 line, which is gas line for buildings, we have $280,000 in this year budget for obviously the lifetime. 230 of that is the well nutrition part of the grant down at the sandbar. So the additional $50,000 we talked about a roof. Roof is one of those things we had on last year, this year, and other things kind of take priority. It's not an urgent matter, something we want to put away for and get it done. We want to get it done. And I think this is something that's taking precedence. For this one, we would like to see, and part of when we did the air handlers too, we did curbs on the roof, so we don't have to get back underneath them and remove air handlers to do the roof when it comes up to doing that. So I have to check and see if that actually may have reduced the roof estimate. But I would like authorization, if I could, we would start to sign this agreement with and for them to put in these improved filtration, or they call it the indoor air quality improvement, for these 4 units, and it costs $6,455. That's for all 4 units. And I guess in addition to that, we've discussed doing an ongoing maintenance agreement that is short. 10,000 foot view here is $2,255 a year. At least for the first year, there's a little escalation of about $75 a year. That's for all 4 units. Provides us on the 2 units that they put in, it'll provide us with a lifetime warranty on the compressor. They come 4 times a year. They'll change filters as needed, that's included. They change belts as needed, that's included. It wasn't specifically referenced in there that that's the case and that's included. They said, oh yeah, that's included. I talked to the gentleman on the phone. I said, either you got to print up a new one or we're going to write it in here's our rooftop unit, this white T180 or whatever it was, and what's the compressor for it, and that's kind of a loaded question, we're just going back and forth. Long story short, he came back and said that the 7.5 ton compressor for a 7.5 ton for this particular unit could be about $2,500. So I thought, if we get them coming 4 times a year, it's about $130 per unit per stop. And I thought it's a really good deal to make sure everything's running fine and it's all already. And it was late on that. That's it.
Yeah, I think it's very important that maintenance on your PC equipment.
Can we do that on one resolution?
What's that?
Can we do that on one?
That means already and then that's another resolution.
Because I only have one motion.
Because he just gave you 2 different things.
Yes, and the other one at 16455, and that's for the installation of the air quality improvements, the higher filtration and the ionization. I almost said ionizer, but, and the other one was $2,255 in year one, it's a 3-year term. For the first year, it's $2,250. That would come out of our regular 1624, 400 or 450 to build the maintenance line. That's what our regular budget is.
I'd be in favor.
For 6,000 for the installation,
Yes,
2,000.
that's annual maintenance, maintenance agreement basically, where they would come out 4 times a year to inspect each of the rooftop units. They group there is a whole list of things within the information that was sent there, where it goes through on the schedule A, it goes through like, 1, 2, and then 13. It tells you what they do each time they're out for each unit. All 4 seasons they do it. And then included in that is things that's $130 basically per unit, per visit, 4 times a year. And they include the filters. I'm not exactly sure what the filters, but some of those high-work filters, I think you're getting upwards to $60, $70. So, I don't know the size of these ones or what they're going to be. So, that seems like a pretty good deal.
It is. They used them on 96 looking off.
Trustee Ippolito?
Darrell asked, aye.
Trustee Lauer?
Aye.
Mayor Byers?
Aye.
Motion passes.
And the sewers on there, next one is just an update on the,
Wait, we
this one.
skipped down.
Huh?
We skipped down.
No, I have nothing. Dave took all my time. The rest of my time.
He does that a lot.
Sewer, we got a letter from the town in regards to the floodplain. We talked to the DEC, I met with Josh and Rod down there from the town, got pictures of the deputy commissioner of public works, and Rod's the building inspector, works on the floodplain stuff. And with John, John's done a great job getting clarified out of there. We had the surveyor stake out the extent of the floodway and the floodplain. After I learned the difference between those 2 terms and the specific things that they apply to. And we've got a plan moving forward, and I'll get one more time tomorrow. And then I anticipate in the early part of the week, working if there's any material that we have found another home for, where we're desired to be within the floodplain, but out of the floodplain, that we would apply for a floodplain permit from the town. Good job, that
you don't have to do anything with it, but Marcia provided you all with a budget to actual report, so it's in there for your reading pleasure.
You have it as well.